Hello, it's me, Antti Alajuma. Today I have a small update for Project ARMO. I have a small problem with the trunk lid lock. Currently the trunk is locked. I have upgraded the car to central locking, so now it should be open, but still it won't open. And it will not open until I open with a key. And the reason is that this lock here is not the central locking type, so it's too stiff for the lock motor to turn it. But today I have a solution for that problem. You can buy new locks for E30, and usually they either come with a key, or I believe it's possible to order a lock cylinder based on the car's VIN number to have it to match it to your existing key. But my problem in that regard is that the locks I have in the car are actually not the original locks for that car, so I have no idea of the VIN that goes with these locks. So instead I bought this lock repair kit. It says repair kit, but it's actually full lock with everything required, and you can key it to your specific key. So this is everything that it comes with. There's kinda a bad drawing of the lock, but I believe I have the order of the parts figured out here. There's also a short assembly instruction in German, but I actually haven't translated it. Here's the actual lock cylinder. It has these slots for these tumblers, or wafers as they are called. In a trunk lid lock there are 4 different kinds of wafers for different cut depths. They are numbered, and I've arranged the wafers by number here. So these are all number 1s, number 2s, number 3s and number 4s. If this was a door lock, there will be some wafers that look a little bit different, because on door locks you have the option to deadbolt the lock by turning the key counterclockwise 90 degrees, and there are some extra wafers for that functionality in door locks. But the trunk lid lock is just a basic wafer lock with 8 wafers. So 4 go in from this side and 4 go in from this side. Number 4 means deepest cut, and number 1 means shallowest cut. In the kit there are actually 5 pieces of each, but I already have here a sequence of wafers for my actual key that I've selected. The actual operation of keying the lock is pretty simple. You can go 1 wafer at a time and just by trial and error see what is the best one. Of course, when you compare the key with the lock, you can see how far the key enters, and you can kind of guess a little bit about the depth. So for number 1, it will be in this section. It's not a deep cut at all, so it will be probably number 1 or number 2. Let's try number 1 first. You enter the wafer from the side where there is a circular opening. That's for a small spring to go under the wafer to keep it in certain position. Now I just hold the wafer a little bit with my fingers and enter the key. When the wafer is correct, it should be flush with the surface of the lock cylinder on both sides. If there was the spring already in, it would keep the wafer in this position. If I stop holding it with my finger, it will drop a little bit deeper, but I can counter that by turning it the other way. Now the gravity is doing the job of the spring. To be absolutely sure if this is the correct wafer, I can enter the cylinder in the housing and see if it's able to turn. Don't be fooled by this because there's at the bottom there's this shape that will limit how far the cylinder turns. So if you push it in all the way, it's limited. But if you don't push it quite as deep, you can see that it turns freely. So we know that the number 1 wafer is 1, and I can write it down. Then I take off the wafer and I can move on to the next one. Let's see, it may be number 1 as well, or it may be a little bit deeper. I will try also number 1 for the second wafer. And I can see that it's not correct because it protrudes here. So if I put this in lock housing, I'm not able to turn it. So it's not number 1. Let's see if it's number 2. Number 2 doesn't seem to be the right either. It's snagging a little bit. So it's probably number 3. We enter number 3 there. Now that seems like a good fit. And indeed it is. So we write it down. Number 1 was 1, and number 2 was 3. And that's how you go one slot at a time and find out which wafer is the correct for that one. Then it's just a matter of assembling the lock. So these wafers I won't be needing, they are the extra ones. These are the ones that I'll be using. When assembling the lock, everything should be greased, and there's this small bottle of grease that they provide with the lock. I'll just take some paper so I won't be making a mess. Now previously we were not using the springs for the wafers, but of course I need to do that now. And this is actually the first time I'm doing this job, so it will probably take some trial and error until I have everything figured out. So first we put in the spring. Then we smear a little bit of lube on the wafer. And enter it in the hole. I think I'll do the 4 wafers on this side first, then turn around the lock and try not to drop any wafers out from the lock, and then do the other 4. So I'll be using that one, and that one. I'll put in all the springs on this side. Everything is going to be covered in grease when I'm done with this. Alright, that's the 4 wafers for this side. And then carefully turn around the cylinder so I can put in the springs for this side. They were nice enough to provide extra springs because they are like microscopically small, and it would be very easy to lose one of these springs, but there seem to be quite many extra springs. I think there's as many springs as there are the wafers. So you can probably use this kit to rekey a few locks, especially if you also reuse old wafers. That's number 2. Number 4. Number 6. And number 8. Now next I need to be able to push the lock cylinder into lock housing without dropping any of the wafers, but it's actually pretty easy when I just enter the key in the cylinder. That way I can also double check that I have the correct setup. It looks good, and it rotates fairly freely. Now there's one wafer that's not quite as flush as the rest. It's the number 6. I have there number 1, but I could actually try number 2 for that one as well. It might also be just a matter of a worn key. I should have new keys made for my car, because this one is a little bit worn out. That's number 1, alright. I'll just double check and try with the number 2 wafer here, but I think this one will be worse. Actually, I really have a hard time deciding which one is better. I believe that it's actually number 1, because the key is just worn out, so it's probably worn down a little bit in this section. I should probably have made new keys. Have new keys made before doing this job, to do this with a fresh key. But I believe that's number 1 rather than number 2. So I will switch back to number 1. Yeah, this turns more freely than before. Now I will also lube up this housing. guess it's also best to lube up this cylinder as well. Usually in life there's no such thing as too much lube. That's what I've learned from Aaron Cake. Now this enters here, and there's this small limit that will limit how much it will be able to turn. And now we are heading for the most fiddly job and most risky job. And there's this small hole here and corresponding hole here. They are for this spring and this small steel ball. The spring-loaded ball will act as a stopper in certain locations for the lock, and you enter it by. I think I'll put a little bit grease in this hole beforehand. So you match the holes here. Put the spring in the hole. And then put the ball there. And now you need to be able to. Now I need to be able to push down on the ball enough that I can turn the key a little bit and push the cylinder all the way into the housing. But there's a very high chance that I will slip and the spring will just flip the ball somewhere in the high heavens. So I'm doing this with a little bit of a trick, just to try and prevent that. I'll do this inside the plastic bag. Just to try and keep the ball from flying away. Now I will push the ball with a screwdriver until I'm able to rotate the cylinder. Alright, now there's the key will stop in certain locations, certain positions. Next item on the list is this spring. That for installing that, I will turn the lock in the middle position to align this peg with the one in the lock cylinder. I think I'll put a little bit of lube here as well. Now this one, you put down here until this end meets the end of this peg. I hope you can see on the video. And then I will tension the spring until I'm able to slip it to the other side of the peg. This is kind of a fiddly job, especially now that it's greased. Now let's try this with the needle nose pliers. All right. For a moment I'll put this here to demonstrate what the spring does. From the center position, the key will freely rotate to clockwise, but when you rotate it counterclockwise, it's spring loaded and wants to turn back to center position. Next, we need to put the lock cylinder into this housing. So first of all we have this chrome cup. The small O-ring, I believe, goes into the cup to act as a seal between this face and the chrome cup. I will put a loop there as well. I will just try and double check from this drawing. So that's O-ring number so and so. So it's it should be correct. The drawing is not very good. Next, I believe the lock cylinder needs to go into the housing, and for that one we have this seal with a kind of a lip and a groove for the seal in the housing. Once again, smear everything with the lube. Inside this housing there are two lengthwise grooves, and they are different sizes. So the lock cylinder will actually only enter one way, in one orientation. This way it doesn't fit, but when I turn it 180 degrees it will go in. just push it here and check that the steel is still in the groove nicely. Now I need to check this a little bit, because next I need to make two things. Firstly, I need to put this spring here with the washer and the locking ring. This spring will take care of the push button action of this lock. And the second thing I need to do is I need to install this piece in the end of the lock. And this is the most important part for the central locking, because it's made in two pieces that can rotate separately in a little bit limited way, but that will allow for the central locking lock motor to turn this part without turning the lock cylinder. So I believe this is the major difference between the lock with the central locking function and lock without the central locking function. There's one corner. In one corner there is this chamfer, so it will only go here one way. And then there's this locking pin that I need to press in that hole. But I'm not exactly sure which one I need to do first. I cannot get the spring and washer past this, so I believe I first need to install the spring. But I might be completely off with this one, so we'll see. Now I have it under tension, and then just grab the locking ring and let it slip in. Now I just check that it's correctly seated. I think it's not quite correct. Yeah, that's better. Now let's see if I can get if this one comes out enough that I can install the locking pin, but it doesn't. So I need to take this off and do it in another order. Let's see how we can do this. Firstly, I'll put the lube here as well. I think there may be already some lube inside, but it never has, as said before, it never hurts to have more lube. Then I think I'll put these parts in here beforehand. Put the spring here. Compress the spring between these parts. and then put in the pin. This one might be a little bit difficult job. I'll try a little bit, a little trick. I'll use cable ties. No. I'll use cable ties for compressing the spring and keeping it compressed. Now we have the compressed spring. And this system. In the video comments someone will probably tell me how I should have done this. Alright, that's the pin started. And then use pliers to push it all the way in. Alright. And we just cut the cable ties. And remove them. Add a little bit of lube to everything. The rest of the loop that I have, it seems to be a carefully calculated amount. Put in the cylinder. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see how the key works. Position 1, I think in this position even the central locking cannot open the lock. And in this position the central locking is able to open or close to the lock. And then in third position it's key open. Now the lock works as it should.